And good morning, good morning. Welcome to Chalk Talk. I'm your host, Kim Davis. Today is Tuesday, March the 21st. Now, what does that mean? It means that we have about 10 days left in this first quarter. So you still got time to kind of salvage some things in the first quarter of 2023 that you decided you might want to get done. Move this mic a little closer. So welcome. And I encourage you to listen, get your fourth quarter plan in action. And in the meantime, let me know if I can help. A lot to get to on today's show. I am super excited about my guest today. It's someone who has been a regular on this show for years. You guys love him. It's Coach Mike Haywood. He's going to join us at about 11:15 or 11:20. So we're going to talk a little bit about what's happening in NFL free agency, take a look at some of the college players that teams are considering, especially teams like the Houston Texans. But before we do that, we're going to talk about March Madness. Yeah, we're down to the Sweet 16. We'll get into that. We'll talk about the Houston Rockets, who were in action last night, lost to the Golden State Warriors. They won 3 in a row. They were 3-3 on this last homestand. They head out for a 5-game road trip. The season is winding down. There is some growth. There has been some progress. We're going to talk about it, let you hear from head coach Stephen Silas and rookies Tari Eason and Jabari Smith Jr. But as always, I've got to say, don't forget about how we get this show done every week. And to remind you that the World Youth Foundation is our title sponsor this month. They're working in collaboration and partnership with the African American Male Wellness Agency on the inaugural walk in Houston. Now, this walk has been going on in Ohio for many, many years, and now it has come to Houston. It's about putting the focus on the wellness of African American men. So we're not just going to walk on April 15th at Texas Southern University. There's going to be health screenings, which is really the crux, the main reason, the focus of this walk is to get information to our community, especially our men, but it's open to everyone. Bring your family out. There'll be a kid zone. You can get screenings, health screenings. Get to know your number so that you can make good choices. You can make better choices. And if there happens to be a problem, you can detect it early and do something about it. So all that's happening April 15th. You don't even have to register. You can just show up. We encourage you to go online and register for a passion team. That's just a team of walkers that, your job, your church, your family, your neighborhood, your sorority, or your fraternity, whatever your group is, register your team. There's no fee to walk. Come out and be a part of this, doing something different. It's the beginning of a whole lot of great stuff with the Houston agency, the Houston branch of the African American Male Wellness Agency. So also, I Love Jinka, our good friends who have been with us here at Chalk Talk for years. I had to get some Jinka for my sister recently. She wasn't feeling well. I'm like, you should be taking Jinka all the time. Don't just wait till you're a little banged up or you got the sniffles or something's wrong. I encourage you to make Jinka a part of your regular lifestyle, right? Well, you can get it and take it a number of different ways. It started as just a paste, an amazing paste, but it was just in the paste form, and you can put that in any way you want. Some people eat it off the spoon. I'm not that person, but I would put it in my coffee or apple juice or in a smoothie, any number of ways. But there's also now vegan veggie capsules. You can just take the capsules. There's powder. You can put it in your food or your oatmeal or your smoothies. The key is to just get it in and get it in consistently. You can get it at ilovejinka.com, but you can also get it at HEB. And when you go to HEB, here's where you find it.
Here at HEB, in the Healthy Living Department of Probiotics, you can find Jinka 7 days a week.
Yeah. Look at that Jinka sale. Look at that. Jinka.
And listen, you guys asked for it, you got it. The Kimmy bars are back in stock at Sunshine's. vegetarian deli on Old Spanish Trail. I stopped making them for a while, or stopped having them there for a while. And I heard from some of you and said, where are the Kimmy bars? Well, they are back. And they are in stock. I was just there yesterday. They are in stock. The body butter is back in stock. It was sold out. It is also in stock. So in addition to getting Kimmy Treats online at kimmytreats.com, you can also get it if you're in Houston at Sunshine's Vegetarian Deli on Old Spanish Trail between Alameda and 288. And here are some of your options. There's the vegan popcorn. There's body butter. There's a new packaging for the body butter. So it'll look different when you go into the deli. And there are also Kimmy bars. You can get it online, or if you're in Houston in person at Sunshine's. And last night, the Houston Rockets were back in action at home, wrapping up the road stand, the home stand. They had a 6-game home stand, and they fell to Golden State 121 to 108. And Golden State's just good, right? But it's you see some growth in this team. And at this point, that's what you're looking for. The season's winding down. They're still playing hard. They're still figuring things out that they can carry with them over into their summer and into the next season. And so here's head coach Stephen Silas after the game last night. You know, he talked about just the growth of his young team.
That's the name of the game for us, right? Like improvement for these guys. And it would have been nice to come up with a win tonight, but you see the growth of our group. You see what they can be. You see like little glimpses every once in a while of what they could really be. So I'm proud of the fact that they are continuing at this point in the season with 11, now 10 games to go to fight the way that they do. They're not letting go of the rope. They're wanting to play a bunch of minutes, and I'm giving them those minutes to play. And they're disappointed after we lose, and that's a good place to be for a team that's rebuilt.
That is a good place to be. You never want to be satisfied with losing. And so, you know, we've talked a lot about how young this team is. And some people are like, oh, it's an excuse. No, it's a reality. They are very young. In fact, I'm going to share with you Draymond Green last night after the game, what he had to say. Pull it up for you.
I think they're doing a pretty good job. Like you can hear the conversation. I was listening to a conversation today between Tari and I think KJ, and like the things that they're saying, you're listening to them, and like they're trying to figure it out. And I was very intrigued by the conversation. Like he's like, oh, but if I could have scrambled him out, but the guy was low, and he's like, yeah, well, if you can get over it, and like the whole conversation, I thought it was very interesting to hear. Two relative, one rookie and KJ's in his second or third year, to hear them talking through things like that, they're well coached because what they're working through is actually the right thing to do. Like you got a small guard stuck on the big. He's talking about kicking him out and getting him to the weak side, and we actually got fouled on that play. So his thinking was right. He was trying to figure out how to get to it, and so. Just to hear that conversation, the coaching staff is doing a good job of this, and it feels like they're listening, and that'll be key to the direction their careers. I think.
So that was Draymond Green, right? Talking about not just the young players and what he sees, because they're on the court and he's hearing the conversation. And he's talking about the fact that they are well coached. And I mentioned that because it's so easy to say, oh man, the coach is a problem. The coach is not the problem, right? I don't know the future for Stephen Silas. I don't know if they will, be one of those organizations that keeps them around until they start being, competitive, and then, okay, now it's time to make a change. Let them go through all the hard part, because that's what happens sometimes. But I know that for right now, these players have bought in, right? They bought in. You're going to hear Tari talk about that. And speaking to Tari Eason, he started last night. Jayshawn Tate was out. Here is Stephen Silas talking about what you get from Tari. Let me just tell you last night what his numbers are. He is a rookie, and he's a young rookie. He's not I went to college for 3 or 4 years rookie. So I'm pulling up the box score. So last night in 30 minutes, Tari had 21 points, 12 rebounds. So he had a double-double. He was 9 of 16 from the field, so he shot better than 50%. Not so great from three. He was 2 of 4 from the free throw line, a couple turnovers, a couple fouls. Not a bad night. Jalen Green had the most minutes with 40. He finished with 20 points, 7 of 19 shooting, 5 turnovers. So he's still working through some stuff. But Tari Eason is, as Coach Silas said, he's growing, and he does a lot of what's right. Here's Coach Silas talking about Tari.
He just makes plays. He'll get a loose ball. He'll make a three every once in a while. He'll crash and get an offensive rebound. He'll get a steal that nobody thought he would get. He makes a mistake every once in a while, but sometimes his mistakes are just like, I'm in the wrong spot and I ended up with the steal. So his progress this season has been really steady, I'd say, and he's one of the guys that, for the most part, you can kind of count on him as far as him being consistent on a nightly basis.
So that's Stephen Silas talking about one of the rookies in Tari Eason. Here is Tari talking about just the fact that the team is getting better, even though the season's winding down and you could say they have nothing to play for. But listen to him and you'll see why he thinks they have a lot to play for, and they're really working toward the future.
We made some really big improvements, just as far as us, not giving up, you know what I'm saying? Sometimes I feel like earlier in the season, we hit, adversity coming out of the half and we would give up, and hats off to the Warriors. They're a championship team, the reigning champs. So, they obviously, executed what they need to execute down the stretch, but I really think we're trending in the right direction.
You and Jabari.
So that is Tari Eason, one of the Rockets rookies who is getting more and more playing time. And as Coach Silas said, he just seems to be in the right place. Even when he's like in the wrong place, he makes the right play. So speaking of coaches, I know one person who would probably be excited to have young players that wanted to learn their craft so well, no matter what the sport. And that is one of our football experts, and that's Coach Michael Haywood, who's about to join us again. Good morning, Coach. How are you?
I'm doing great, Kim. How are you doing today?
I am doing well. Well, thank you for hopping in and visiting with us. Last time there were people who said, hey, can you have him back again? I'm like, he's on from time to time. If I can get him, he will be back. So thank you for joining us again to help us kind of sort through some of what's happening in the world of football. As we get started, Michael, what are just some of your thoughts from what you've seen? Let's talk about the quarterbacks. The moves so far that we've seen with quarterbacks. Derek Carr has gone to the Saints. Garoppolo has gone to the Raiders. Nobody's trying to get Lamar Jackson. They've given Mac Jones a new contract. What stands out with you about what's happening with this quarterback market in the National Football League?
Well, the first thing is about Lamar Jackson. They know that he's not going to leave Baltimore, and they're going to come up with a plan to make sure that he stays in Baltimore to finish his career. The other thing is, and people always ask, well, why aren't people really approaching him and coming after him in an aggressive manner? And the bottom line is because, one, you have to pay Lamar And then two, you have to change your whole dynamic of your team to go out and hire a new team, to employ a new team to fulfill his role as a quarterback. And so it won't settle in. I mean, you won't have a team that you need to surround him with at least for 2 to 3 years. It's just like a rookie coming into camp who's an outstanding rookie. You paid him a lot of money. Now you got to go out and get some guys, get a supporting cast to help it. And that's what the problem is with Lamar.
You don't think that the Commanders team, with some of the pieces they have in place, could use a guy like Lamar, or even, well, the 49ers they've got a few pieces out there in terms of quarterback, but it just seems like the Washington, there's no quarterback. And I get what you're saying. The Ravens have built their entire offense around him. It's unfortunate that they don't want to really compensate him, in the way that he wants to be compensated. It seems like he should be able to fit with a couple of places. Would it take a lot for a Commanders team to be able to get him into a system that could work?
It would take at least 2 to 3 years before they could, put a team together that could complement his talents and the things in which he does, because their team is set up of drop back passing, sitting up back in the pocket, making a few plays with your legs here and there. Lamar Jackson, you are on the move. I mean, it's a total different offensive line, totally different backs, totally different wide receivers, and you just have to get people to fit the system. I mean,
that's
a
good point. Yeah.
When we were at LSU and we had a backup quarterback that was that way, we had a whole different system, a whole different players. And just to go in and get 4 or 5 plays in the game and then come back out, just changing the whole momentum of the game. We had 4 or 5 different players to go in there and make some changes. And if it sparked, we left him in there, but we would come back about 2 series later and put a whole different offense in there. But they can't do that in the pros. They don't have the numbers.
They cannot do that in the pros. You make a very good point. One of the challenges for Baltimore, though, is that they haven't really surrounded Lamar with very much talent, right? There's no number 1 receiver. There's no number 1 back. There's not a whole lot else but him, which is why it's odd to me that they have been dragging their heels on really compensating him. And one last thing before we move on from Lamar, this criticism that, he doesn't have an agent. Well, Larry Tunsil, who plays for the Texans, just got a new deal without an agent, and which makes him the highest paid tackle in the league. So I think that's just an excuse, quite frankly.
They say that his mother's his agent. It doesn't matter. I mean, what his worth is. They just don't want to pay. They don't want to give him the guaranteed money.
They don't want to give him the guaranteed money. Let's talk a little bit more about the quarterbacks that are coming out. So recently, Carolina Panthers moved up, did a deal with Chicago to get the number 1 pick in the draft, obviously to get a quarterback. Frank Reich is their offensive coordinator, and there's some who think that move means they're going to take C.J. Stroud because of the kind of quarterback that Frank Reich tends to like. What are your thoughts about that? And of course, Texans fans would be excited because that would mean Bryce Young would be available at number 2, if in fact that's the route the Texans are going. Do you think that when a team makes a move, an offensive coordinator looks for his prototype player?
I would agree with that. You think about Frank Reich and his history. Frank Reich came out of Maryland and he went to Buffalo. Well, Jim Kelly was the quarterback at Buffalo when he was there. So what was Jim Kelly? Jim Kelly was a pocket passer and a clobber horse trying to run the football. All right. Then what was Frank Reich? I mean, he's a pocket quarterback. What is he, about 6'3", 6'3.5", somewhere up in there? He was a pocket quarterback. So all he did was sit in the pocket. All right. So he's looking for somebody. When he was at Philadelphia and they won the Super Bowl, I think it was Super Bowl 52. That they won with him as the offense coordinator. Wentz and Foles were the quarterbacks. What type of quarterbacks are those guys? Pocket quarterbacks. And so his history has shown that he's looking for more of a pocket quarterback, a stout pocket quarterback. So I wouldn't be surprised if he was taking C.J. Stroud, but I wouldn't be surprised if he took the kid Levi from Kentucky.
Really? So you don't think Bryce Young is the kind of player he would take?
I don't know how Bryce Young fits into his system. Bryce Young, they say he's 6 foot tall. He looked like he's 5'10". But
I think he's.
I don't know.
I think he measured at 5'10" at the combine.
Okay, so history says he doesn't fit into his program. It says one of the other two, maybe Levi, because he's a big stout kid, but he does have some running ability, and then CJ. CJ's more of an athletic kid. But here's my question about CJ. When I went to the Ohio State Notre Dame game, all CJ threw was balls outside the hash. How well does he throw the ball over the middle of the field? That is my question about CJ.
Well, it's interesting to see. I don't know if he's had his pro day or not yet, but that would be. And I think you mentioned that the last time we talked about CJ. Let me ask you about another quarterback that people are talking about since the combine, and that's Anthony Richardson. Have you seen much of him?
Oh, I saw him during the year. I saw him when he was playing during the year. He's extremely athletic. I tell you what did he jump? He jumped 43. My son was watching television in another room. He came screaming, Dad, Dad, Dad. I'm like, what, MC? He said, Dad, the quarterback jumped 43 inches. Why is he playing quarterback? I'm like, who is he? He said, the kid from Florida jumped 43 inches. I say, well, one thing about it, when it's 4th and short, you know where the ball is going. But
right.
He is he's extremely athletic. I don't know what his intelligence level is because he could turn the ball over in a heartbeat. Sometimes you have a little bit more confidence in yourself than what your athletic ability allows you to do. And so it'd just be really interesting to see where he goes and how he develops. But I think that he needs a year or two to develop. I don't think that he's a kid that goes into a program and starts right away.
So with that said, do you think that both C.J. Stroud and Bryce Young can go into the league, and are they your day one starters?
Well, I'm not sure about C.J. Stroud. He's out there saying he's the best quarterback in the league, but I don't know the last time he won a national championship. But Bryce Young is 5'10", throwing BBs and throwing darts, knows how to get the ball out of his hand, has played in the toughest conference in college football. I think that he's going to be a success, when he goes into it. And he was running the pro offense. He was running the New England's offense when he was over at Alabama. So he already knows the pro offense. He understands what a hot is, what a sight is. He knows how to re-ID the mic to protect himself. If he's getting trouble from the front side, he knows how to get the ball out of his hand. He is a well-taught quarterback.
Before we hop back to the Texans and we're talking about quarterbacks, you mentioned Alabama. I wanted to throw in Tua. Some people are looking at Tua saying, look at his size. He's had all of these injuries. Is that something that should be a concern about Bryce Young? Will Tua be able to make it and continue to play in the National Football League? You've seen Tua play. You've seen him play when he's healthy in the NFL. What are your thoughts about Tua and his ability? Is it his size, or has it just been situational why he's been injured?
I don't necessarily. I think size has a little bit to do with it, but I don't think that's the problem with him. He's got into that situation where he's gotten concussions and repeatedly getting concussions. We had a tailback by the name of Rondell Mealy at LSU that was continuing to get concussions, and they were going to give him a medical and not allow him to play anymore. And then we had a doctor that decided that he was going to do some research on some of the things in which he was eating. And it came out that it was something in his diet that was causing him to have these multiple concussions. He changed his diet. He ended up being a draft pick to the Green Bay Packers 5 years later, because we redshirted him that year. And he ended up 4 years later, I guess you would say, being a draft pick to the Green Bay Packers. And so They just have to find out what's going on with him. Maybe it's his diet, maybe it's something that he's doing in his workouts. But I think that he's an outstanding quarterback and has a great has an opportunity to be a great prospect or a great player in the league because he does a really good job of getting the ball out of his hand. And he has a slow release, but he can get it out of his hand, and he's accurate when he gets it out.
It's interesting you mentioned that, and we talked before. We talked about this. I know the two of us have talked about this before. It's also about being in the right place, being in the right system. And when I think about that, I think about a Geno Smith who went to the Seahawks and has found his spot, right? And now when you look back at it, you said, well, let's look back at the places where he's been. He was never in what you would call the right system with the right people around him and the right organization. And when he got there, we saw that, oh yeah, Geno can play a little bit. And I think people forget, yes, quarterback is, we'll say maybe it's the most important position on the team, but all those other pieces matter a whole lot.
Yeah, there has to be unity. And I was just in a meeting and I talked about everybody understanding what your role is within the organization. And you have to understand what your role is when you're on offense, and you have to execute your responsibility on each and every play. And the quarterback has to know what the strengths and the weaknesses are in every game that you go into. You're going to have some strengths and you're going to have some weaknesses, but what are we going to do to get ourselves to make sure that we're protected? And I think that he does a good job with that because, he's been taught well.
You're listening to Chalk Talk. I'm Kim Davis. I'm talking with Coach Mike Haywood, who is just been a student of the game, I guess, his entire adult life, at least for the 30 years or so that I've known him. Michael, what have you heard about the Texans general manager, Nick Caserio, as a talent evaluator? And I know that you had a lot of connections with the New England organization. I've not heard great things. I'm hoping for the best because I'd like to see D'Amico be successful and this Texans team turn things around. And so what have you heard about the Nick Caserio as a talent evaluator? And do you have any thoughts about some of the moves the Texans have made in free agency as they try to me, start this rebuild over one more time?
Well, the thing about coming out of New England, people have to understand when they come out of New England, there's only one man running that show. All right. But they always hire everybody that's coming out of New England because they think they got the answers because they're with Bill Belichick.
Yeah.
But then go back and check how many of them have been successful since they left Bill Belichick.
His tree has not bore a lot of fruit.
No, because Bill Belichick does everything. I was out there. Charlie Weiss had us go out there to meet with New England staff for a week. We were there for a week. We were privileged to go to all the team meetings, to go to the quarterback meetings, running back, whatever position, we could go to all the meetings. And he ran everything. I mean, everything in the meetings, everything on the field, everything off the field. Everybody was coached and taught exactly what to do on each and every situation. And so it's all in which you are, it's all in the information in which you retain. And when you retain it, to go out there and just follow the script that's always written, that's already written. But like, for example, I didn't work with Will Muschamp when he was at South Carolina, but there were several other guys that worked with him when he was there. And the only thing that they kept saying is that he's changing everything that Nick did. He's changing everything that Nick did. Why is he changing? There was nothing wrong with what we did with Nick. Why is he changing? Because we're getting our butt beat. All right. You don't have to change the script. Just follow the script. And so I don't know if he's following the script or changing the script. But if he's changing the script, the Texans won't be successful. If he's following the script, they'll be successful.
Yeah, I just look at some moves recently. They finally did move on from Brandon Cooks, did the deal, traded him to Dallas, got a 5th this year and I think a 6th next year in terms of picks and compensation, and have to send $6 million the six to help compensate his guaranteed salary when he could have moved him at the deadline, right? And gotten a better deal. So I just am like, I haven't been super impressed with things like that. I mean, but them locking up Laramie Tunzel, I know the tackle position is super important. And last year, Laramie played, like players do in a contract year. If he plays like he did last year for another few years, and it was a good decision. I just was a little torn because he checked out on him the year before. And I just think the player that's your highest paid player, I don't care who the coach is, ought to be a different example, right?
Well, I agree with that, but you have to go back. You go back to when he was in college, and you check his psychological disposition. It's all about Larry. All right. So you understand what you're dealing with. All right.
Yeah.
Now you understand the situation. You understand his character, and you understand what talent he is, because he is by far the best tackle in pro football. However, if you decide that you're going to pay him, can you control it? And some people don't believe that you should control players. You have to make sure that you can make sure that he shows up and that he is a leader on the team. When he's making the money that he's making, people are going to follow. So he needs to be a leader on the team. And those conversations they should have been had with him and his agent prior to paying him that kind of money.
Oh, he doesn't have an agent.
Oh, he doesn't. He's his own guy.
He's his own guy.
Yeah.
So much for you got to have an agent to get a deal done. I mean, it's like you said, some of the deals, it's not that hard, right?
No, it's not that hard. It's not that difficult.
You know what the numbers are. Are you optimistic? Have you had a chance to? I don't know how much you know about D'Amico or the staff he's put together. Some of the early moves the Texans have made in free agency. They shored up Laramie Tunzel, and if he's the Laramie he was last year, then they'll be in great shape. But we won't know until this year, right? Because a contract year brings out a different kind of person all the time, and that's just the truth. That's not a criticism. That is an observation. I've seen it my entire career. So that's one thing. They went out and got some other help on the line. They got some defensive players, and they've got a running back to help out with he won't be a rookie next year, but they have made some moves in the offseason. Any of them impress you? So they signed Shaq Lawson, offensive lineman, as a free agent. They signed Robert Woods, a wide receiver, MJ Stewart, a defensive back, and Derek Rivers, who I kind of like as a defensive lineman. Any of those players make you go, okay, they're headed in the right direction?
The only one I had a conversation with was Carl Dunbar, and he's the D-line coach at Pittsburgh, and he thought that they made a really good move with the D-line player. They thought that he'll be able to come in there and help. And it's just like anything else. How do they fit into the system? Because none of those players have played in that system. And how are they going to fit into that new offensive system? How are they going to fit into that new defensive system? And with the head coach, he is the only one that understands the puzzle for the entire team. And he has to put people in those places that he thinks is going to be successful. And, in pro football, it's a little bit different because then you got to mix with the general manager and you guys have to be on the same page. And you just have to wait and see if they're on the same page or not, because they got to put that puzzle together. And, sometimes it takes a little bit longer than what we're willing to wait for as fans.
And one last thing before we start talking about, I want to get to college football and the NIL, is Case Keenum. Clearly they brought him in as a backup. Do you think Case Keenum's, that kind of guy you want to have teaching your young rookie or as a backup quarterback? He's been in Houston before, but obviously it was a different system. Well, it was with Kubiak, so maybe it's a similar system because of Shanahan, but Case Keenum is back as a Houston Texan once again.
I've liked Chase Keenum. Keenum since he was in college, playing at Houston. I thought the dude he's really smart. He's a competitor. I understand that he goes to work every day and he works hard every day. And they need some hard workers within that organization.
Yeah.
To go in there and teach these young guys how they're supposed to work. And I think that he'll do a good job as a backup quarterback and show some leadership because he showed leadership through college and in the pros, even when he was a backup guy. I remember some guys say they couldn't lead unless they were playing. He's done a good job of leading, and then when he gets in there, he does a good job. He competes.
So, Michael, let's talk about the NIL. We didn't get a chance to have this conversation last time. How do you think it's impacting college athletics? What do you think is the future of that program, and your thoughts in general about what you've seen in these couple of years since it's been, a part of the game, if you will?
I think players should get paid. However, I don't understand how a freshman is going to come in and get paid $150,000 a year just because of what he did in high school. Hadn't played one down in college football because it's totally different. Because you have to adjust to the academics, you have to adjust to the social life, you have to adjust to the speed of the game, you have to adjust to your teammates, and there's a slim percentage of freshmen that come in and have a lot of success their first year. And then you're giving them more money than you're giving guys that are out there on the field playing. Then you have problems within your team. But the other thing is that what is it teaching our kids from a social aspect, from a loyalty aspect, from a commitment aspect? One of the problems that we had in college football, and there's still a problem in college football, the problem in our society, is with lay and play daddies. Lay and play daddies having kids and not raising their kids. All right, they land and playing, they have no commitment, no loyalty, no obligation, and they get up and leave. Well, the NIL, in my opinion, is saying the same thing. It is all right for you to go to an institution for 1 year, and just because you don't like it, or just because you don't have the success in which you've had, then it's all right for you to pick up and go somewhere else and go to somebody else's home. And I don't get that. I think that the kids need to stay in place at least 2 years. They need to earn the money in which they get. They had a situation at Notre Dame where a guy became a starter over another guy in the middle of the year. They had to go get him some NIL money in the middle of the year. I called one of the guys up on the phone. I said, "Man, what are you doing? It sounds like you're on the plane." He said, "Coach, I am on the plane." I said, "What are you doing on the plane?" He said, "I'm going to New York to get some more money." During the middle of the year, I got to go get some more money. I can't see that. And so I do believe that they should get played. I believe that everything should transpire before the season gets started. But I believe that there should be some loyalty within the organization in which you have to stay 2 years. Lou Holtz told me one time when I was in college football, I had taken a job from Ball State, and I was in the airport flying to LSU to sign the paperwork. But I had already given my word I was going. Lou Holtz had his secretary, Miss Jan, call me in the airport in Memphis, Tennessee. And I go and answer they said, "Michael Haywood," to this phone. I go pick up the phone. I said, "Hello." And it's Miss Jan. I said, "Hey, Miss Jan, how you doing?" She said, "Coach Holtz wants to talk to you." I said, "All right, cool." He offers me the running back. No, he offers me the outside linebacker job at the University of Notre Dame. I said, "Coach, I'm sorry, I can't come because I've accepted the running back job at LSU." And his words to me is that when you accept a job, you should stay at least 2 years. I believe kids should stay at least 2 years.
So do you think the same with coaches? And I guess for the most part, they stay the 2 years, a couple of years, because I think that was one of the criticisms that people would have is that, coaches can go in and kids go in, they commit perhaps based on a coach, and then a coach leaves because he's got a better opportunity. And prior to them players being able to go into the portal, then kids would be, wouldn't have the same opportunities. Should it be the same for the players as it is for coaches?
Well, first of all, I would agree with that. The coaches should go somewhere and stay for 2 years, a minimum of 2 years. The only one that I know probably did that was Kippen, but that's to be expected.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But at the same time, no, uh, I tell kids when I'm recruiting them, you shouldn't come to where I am because of me. You shouldn't come because of the head coach. You should come because of the academics in which this institution is going to provide you. You should come because of the social environment in which you're going to be in. And you should come because it's not a 4-year or 5-year decision. This is a 40-year decision for your life. Make your decisions off of those foundations and those core values. Don't make it off of the coach because the coach is going to come and go. I can guarantee you they're going to come and go.
And that's a great point. Michael Haywood, as always, I appreciate you hopping in. I see you're rolling on the road. I'm guessing you are still in Indiana.
I am in Indiana. We have 2 jobs going on today, and I just left the meeting, and now I'm going over here to see what these jobs are because I hadn't been there since 9:00 this morning.
Well, listen, go handle your crew. I appreciate you. We'll talk soon. And as always, thank you for jumping in and teaching us a little something on Chalk Talk. I appreciate you, my friend.
Hey, dear, I appreciate you. Take care now.
All
Hey,
right,
I'm
be
coming.
safe.
I'm coming to Houston on the 2nd through the 9th. And
Okay.
if you guys don't know, Kim Davis makes the best German chocolate cake in the country.
I get what you're saying. I got you, my friend. I'll see you
All right.
when you get to town. All right.
All
Thanks,
right.
Michael.
Take care. Bye bye.
That is Coach Michael Haywood, who, yeah, that was all about me making him a cake, right? Not so much that the rest of you guys needed to know that I'm a really good cook. At any rate, you are listening to Chalk Talk. I'm your host, Kim Davis. Before we, I want to get back to basketball. So I want to talk about what's happening with March Madness. We're now at the Sweet 16. And although I don't cover the University of Houston normally, it is because it's the tournament that I am, obviously looking at talking about them. The Final Four is going to be in Houston. So, we got to talk about it. So what's going to happen? The Houston, let me tell you something. The Houston Cougars in the second game this weekend looked like they started off the game. They didn't look good. Let's just say that. On Saturday, the first half, they didn't look good. They didn't play. Auburn seemed to have their number. They went in at halftime. They came back in the second half, and they played some amazing defense. Now I don't follow them all the time, so because you know my relationship with the Houston Cougars athletic department, not really them, but their sports information people. But the way they played defense in that second half on Saturday, I was like, if they can do this for the rest of the way in each game, they'll be really tough to beat. Now, with that said, they are going to be facing Miami in their next round, right? I'm just going to pull up the bracket real quick. The bracket. Okay. So here's where we are in the Sweet 16. There are only two number 1 seeds left. That's Houston and Alabama. Houston plays 5 seed Miami on Friday night. And if they get past Miami, they will play the winner of Xavier in Texas. There are many who think Texas is a 2 seed in the region. There are many who think that that's going to be a really difficult matchup for the Houston Cougars. Of course, first they've got to get past Miami, who was for some reason talking about they want Houston. I mean, haven't people learned? Stop saying you want Houston. Whether it's the Astros and now it's the Cougars, just really? Is that what you want, Miami? So you got Houston, number 1 team in the country. If Houston's able to get past Miami, they will play the winner of Xavier and Texas. The other Sweet 16 games, number 1 Alabama plays number 5 San Diego on Friday. Princeton, which is still around, the 15th seed, will play number 6 Creighton. Of course, Princeton defeated Missouri over the weekend, which was considered an upset. Florida Atlantic will play Tennessee. And of course, Florida Atlantic defeated FDU this past weekend. The other Sweet 16 games, Michigan State, who had defeated Marquette, that was considered an upset, will play number 3 Kansas State. And of course, there's Xavier and Texas. That should be a really good game, a 2 and a 3 seed. That game's on Friday night. Gonzaga plays UCLA and UConn plays Arkansas. Arkansas defeated top-ranked Kansas and what would definitely be considered an upset, 72-71. Those are the Sweet 16 teams. The teams that advance in those games will go to the Elite 8, and the teams that win those games will make their way to Houston for the Final Four first weekend in April. So we're winding down, right? We're excited about what's to come, and you know, a big part of what's happening with the Houston Cougars is their All-America Sasser. How well is he playing? I mean, how healthy is he? He's a guard. He's had an issue with a growing injury. He tweaked it a little bit in the first game. He did play in the second game. And, you know, they got some time to kind of rest up before they play again. So they play again on Friday night. The goal is that he get a little more rest and is able to come out and to be effective. So getting those 5 days of rest or so is really important for him. And listen, he expects that injury to kind of linger for the rest of the season. You know, it's a growing injury, and really the only thing you can do, you can keep getting treatment, but it's going to require rest. And so they don't have a lot of time for rest. They're trying to win a championship. They don't play again until Friday. So that's, you know, that's good for them. He did have 22 points in 31 minutes. So, you know, yeah. So that was that. I'm not really sure what just happened now. Somebody popped into the studio that I don't know how they got the link. Anyway, so that's what's happening with the Houston Cougars. He injured it's a growing injury. He sustained back on March 11th in the semifinal win over Cincinnati in the ACC tournament. But he's like, listen, this is what we play for. You play to get to this point, and he's trying to help his team get to the Final Four and ultimately win the NCAA championship. I do believe they need Marcus Sasser if they're going to win it all, but also they've got to play the way they played in the second half of that game against Auburn. That was fun to watch, right? If you're a college basketball fan or just a fan of competition, that was a fun thing to watch. So there's that. All right, so I had a comment. Thank you for whoever told me earlier he wants his cake. Yes, he does. Kim's talking about Michael. He wants his cake. Good morning. I love Jinka. We talked about Jinka earlier. Make sure that you get some Jinka in your life. I had to, as I mentioned, get some from one of my sisters. She didn't have any, and go over and make it for her. It's not hard. It doesn't require all of that, but it is something that you should have in your cabinet, or in your pantry, or in your refrigerator, because you don't want to be without it. In fact, I was talking to someone with the Rockets last night. They get ready to go on the road for 9 days, which is a tough road trip, 5 games, and she was drinking something. I said, "What are you drinking?" She says, "This is turmeric." I'm like, you need to get to HEB and get you some Jinka so that you can take it on the road with you, right? So that you can make sure that your immune system is all shored up and doing what it should. So turmeric is the real deal. People know about turmeric, and Jinka is just a great way to get it so that it actually works in your system. Hello, Rainice. Rainey says that Jinka is a daily requirement because it needs to build up in your system. And so it's a good thing to have just daily. And if you don't want to make it with the paste or the tea, get the capsules. You can just take the capsules and go on about your way. Rainice knows, I think Rainice was saying when she doesn't have her Jinka, she can tell the difference in her knees. I hope you're feeling better, my friend. And when you get a little under the weather, whether it's some respiratory stuff, because there's a lot in the air with allergies, the Jinka can help you. I'm telling you, if you have not tried it, just try it. And then you can thank me later. All right, we are just about out of time for this week's show. A lot coming up between now and next week. I'm actually looking to do a special Chalk Talk show really about the Texas Education Agency, the takeover of HISD. So I'm working on getting a particular educator to come in and talk about it. So when you see something coming up, just mark it on your calendars. I'll let you guys know before I do it. I think it's an important conversation to have because I think it's important for people to understand what's happening with the Texas Education Agency. If you're in HISD, if you're a parent, if you have kids in the district, you're a teacher maybe, what should you know? What should those of us in the community know and understand? Oh my goodness, Spencer Tillman. Thank you so much, Spencer. That's great coming from you. I can't wait to get you back on Chalk Talk, my friend. So I look forward to you letting me know when you can visit with us. We are always so much smarter after we visit with you. But listen, remember a couple of things. If you're not registered to vote, get registered, right? It is important to always stay registered so you don't have to get registered. If you haven't had the vaccine, I'm encouraging you to get the COVID vaccine. It is still a lot of COVID out in these streets. And remember, do something kind for yourself and do something kind for somebody else. Make it a great, great week. And remember, the African American Male Wellness Walk is April the 15th at Texas Southern University. Show up, bring some friends. Make sure that you're taking advantage of these free screenings. You do not want to miss it. And it's going to be a whole lot of fun. I look forward to seeing you, if not before, on April the 15th at Texas Southern University. Remember, I Love Jinka at HEB and Kimmy Treats at Sunshines and online.
Here at HEB, in the Healthy Living Department of Probiotics, you can find Jinka 7 days a week.
Yep. Look at a Jinka sale. Look at that. Jinka.